Hey party people, I'm Lia Scholl, pastor of First Friends Meeting in Greensboro, North Carolina. Thank you for taking some of your valuable time to be with me today. Today we're exploring just how valuable time is and the anxiety that it creates. So be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Several years ago, I asked a Sunday school class what they were anxious about. Their answers were easily grouped. The first was other people's expectations, and within that, they included their own insecurities, feeling out of control, not being good enough, and the internal pressures they were putting on themselves. The second group of anxieties was about the future. Do I and will I have enough money to last? Is my health okay? Things like that. And the third was worry about their loved ones, their kids, their parents, their jobs, all the ways that their lives were busy caring for other people. And I'd like to point out that that was all pre-pandemic. It feels like these anxieties have gotten even greater. And let's confess that we also worry about the world, about politics and climate change and justice and fairness and all those things. That's a lot to worry about, isn't it? In Oliver Burkeman's amazing book, if you haven't read this yet, stop what you're doing and go order it, 4,000 Weeks, which is subtitled Time Management for Mortals, Burkeman paraphrases the philosopher Heidegger, saying our being is totally, utterly bound up with our finite time. So bound up, in fact, that the two are synonymous. To be, for a human, is to exist, is to above all, is above all to exist temporally, in the stretch between birth and death, certain that the end will come, yet unable to know when. And Heidegger would even go further, exposing not only that we have a limited amount of time, but we are a limited amount of time. Burkeman goes on to say, our limited time isn't just one among various things we have to cope with. Rather, it's the thing that defines us as humans before we start coping with anything at all. Before I can ask a single question about what I should do with my time, I find myself already thrown into time, into this particular moment with my particular life story, which has made me who I am and which I can never get out from under. Looking ahead to the future, he continues, I find myself equally constrained by my finitude. I'm being borne forward on the river of time with no possibility of stepping out of the flow onward toward my inevitable death, which, to make matters even more ticklish, could arrive at any moment. You get where I'm going, right? We are constantly battling the idea of time, or maybe even the finitude of time, and this is the root of our anxiety. We cannot meet other people's expectations because there is not enough time. We cannot be certain about the future because we have no idea how much time there is. Burkeman says, this, for Heidegger, is the central challenge of human existence. Since finitude defines our lives, he argues that living a truly authentic life, becoming fully human, means facing up to that fact. We must live out our lives to whatever extent we can in clear-eyed acknowledgement of our limitations. in the undiluted mode of existence that Heidegger calls being towards death, aware that this is it, that life is not a dress rehearsal, that every choice requires myriad sacrifices, and that time is already running out. Indeed, that it may run out today, tomorrow, or next month. Did I just add to your anxiety? I posit for you that Sabbath is a way to resist that anxiety. In this morning's text, which is found in Genesis chapter 3, it's a common story that we know. It's about the fall from the garden. We learn there about how anxiety will be made manifest for the Ish and the Isha, the man and the woman of the garden. She will have pain in childbirth, and by the way, really hates snakes. And there will be a difficulty between the Ish and the Isha. The man will have to work hard and will have to face his own death. There's always some question about this text, about whether they are descriptive or prescriptive. Are they describing what is, or are they describing what should be? I tend to think that they are about describing what is. Childbirth is painful. Men and women can have a difficult dynamic. Working the land is hard, and we're all going to die. But Sabbath rebuilds. May I reiterate the words from Abraham Joshua Heschel I spoke last week. Sabbath is a realm of time where the goal is not to have, but to be. Not to own, but to give. Not to control, but to share. Not to subdue, but to live in accord. He continues, life goes wrong when the control of space, the acquisition of things of space, becomes our sole concern. Do you see how it works there? A time to not to have, but to be. A time where we are time. Not to own, but to give. A time where we share what we have. Not to control, but to share, and not to subdue, but to live in accord. Each one of those things kind of beats back against the painful childbirth, the difficult dynamic of men and women, the fact that working the land is hard, and the notion that we're all going to die. If it is a realm of time, it is, and time really is who we are. Then Sabbath is a time we do not worry about the things we do not have, the things we do not own, the things we cannot control, the things we cannot subdue. It is instead a time when we live into being, giving, sharing, and living in accord. We're not fighting against the curses of the fall, but instead we're relaxing, enjoying company, building community. It's almost like we're living before the fall. In our Godly Play story today, you see that seventh day, that Sabbath day, and you see that it is a white square or a white rectangle. It's blank. That's because it is ours to fill with the good things of life. So I wonder, how will you build Sabbath into your life? One way to do it is to have hobbies. I know. Many of you will think that this is an old-fashioned idea, but really, do you have any hobbies? Imagine this. This is my best story of a hobby I found all week. Rod Stewart, the famous leather-clad singer of "If You Want My Body and You Think I'm Sexy, Come On Sugar, Let Me Know." He spent the last 2 decades at work on a vast and intricate model railway layout of a 1940s American city, sort of a mix between New York and Chicago, complete with skyscrapers, vintage automobiles, and grimy sidewalks. Rod Stewart, rocker and model train hobbyist. What do you think about that? Maybe a hobby for you could be sewing. I make some of my own clothes, and I find when I'm making clothes, time just, it is almost like being time. I am so in the moment that I feel that I am being time in a good way. Or maybe it could be hiking or rock climbing or baking bread. Hobbies are anything that you do that doesn't lead you to having, owning, controlling, or subduing. I want you to hear this clearly though. There may be some who are living so close to the bone that they believe that they cannot have hobbies. But hobbies do not have to be expensive, nor do they even have to take up that much time. And hobbies are subversive and worth doing. In the words of Oliver Burkeman, precisely, they're worth doing because they are worth doing for themselves alone, despite offering no payoffs in terms of productivity or profit. Can you think of anything to counter the idea that we are nothing but productivity better than doing something that is not about productivity? I can't. So I'll ask you again, how might you build Sabbath into your life?